Chapter 5. I may not have had the right clothes, and it was taking longer than I thought to make friends, but I was caught up in math within a week. Mrs. Burton moved me out of the lowest reading group after the first day, and I didn't forget my homework once, even though lots of other kids did. I had soccer practice last night, Josh Hodkins whined when Mrs. Burton asked him why he wasn't finished. I didn't have time. Mrs. Burton frowned, which was about the meanest thing she ever did. School should come first, she said. I'll have to write a note to your parents. She looked around the class. Janie, would you show Josh how to do problem number 5 in the book? I went over to his desk. I decided I shouldn't ask him why he wasn't a good little worker. She gives too much homework, Josh griped. I shrugged. Josh kept complaining. Who cares about fractions anyway? I think grown-ups have to know them, I said. I didn't mind fractions. I thought they were kind of like a game. But did they give you some test when you became an adult that had 1/8 plus 1/2 in it? When I'm a grown-up, Josh said, if I need to do any math, I'll hire someone else to do it for me. He looked straight at me. What's it to you? You probably like homework because you can't afford to join a soccer team or anything like that. For a whole minute, I felt like I couldn't breathe. I felt like Josh had socked me in the stomach. A kid at my old school did that to me once when I didn't get out of his way when he wanted me to. Mrs. Burton picked that moment to come over and check on Josh and me. Are you two doing all right? She asked, leaning over so close I could smell her perfume, her expensive perfume. Fine, Josh said. Great, I said. I guess he probably didn't say like fine. He probably said, fine. It got cold. Now, when we went out to recess, our breath made little clouds around our mouths. The bars of the jungle gym felt icy through my gloves. I guess even Satterwaite School couldn't afford to heat the playground. I wouldn't have minded except that my wrists stuck out of all of my winter clothes from last year. The sweatshirts barely came down to my belly button. My winter coat was the same one I had since first grade. It was even worse. Mama gasped the first morning I tugged it on. Well, that doesn't fit anymore, does it? She said. I shook my head. We'll have to put a brick on her head, Dad said from the kitchen. Keep her from growing. Not my big girl, Mama said. She hugged my shoulders as if to protect me from any bricks. We're proud you're growing, honey. I just didn't expect winter to come on so soon. She peered into the closet as if hoping some nice, big, warm, big coat would appear in there by magic. She sighed. I'll pick up my check at the specialty shop this weekend, and then we'll go shopping. I'm sorry, Janie, you'll just have to make do with this coat until then. I sat on the school bus wondering what Josh Hodkins would have to say about a ragged, limped pink coat with a broken zipper. This coat belonged back at Clyde, where everything was broken. You can see a little picture here. Now remember, I hope you're not looking at the screen. Give your eyes a screen break. I'll let you know when we have a picture. But Josh didn't say anything. Kimberly did. The second day I wore that coat, she sidled up to me on the playground. Her coat was royal blue with red trim. I think I saw a picture once of a princess wearing a coat like that. Janie, she said in a near whisper, I have an old coat at home, and my mom says I can give it to you if I want. I mean, it's not that old. It's just that I got too big for it, and you wouldn't be too big for it because I'm kind of fat and you're not. My face felt too hot and too cold all at once. I think my tongue was frozen, but my cheeks were on fire. Kimberly was looking at me, waiting. Her face was all scrunched up like she was really worried about what I might say. Do you want it? Kimberly asked. No, I said, because I didn't. I didn't want anyone's hand-me-downs. Then I tried to think what Mama would want me to say. No, thank you. I'm going to get a new coat on Saturday. My Mama and I just haven't had time to shop. That's why I'm wearing this. I shrugged my shoulders, moving my horrible coat up and down. A little piece of gray stuffing fell out of the coat. Both Kimberly and I watched that stuffing drop to the ground. and then we both looked away, like something really embarrassing had happened, like one of us had peed in her pants or something. Oh, Kimberly said. She had that same look on her face she got when Mrs. Burton asked her about multiplication, like her brain would never in a million years tell her what to say next. Want to go teeter-totter? I asked her. Yes, she said. That's kind of funny, teeter-totter. Uh, like a seesaw. That afternoon, Mrs. Burton made me do 3 pages of our math journals. She made me look up 10 science terms. She made us write sentences for all 20 of our spelling words. I worked hard, but I could still hear Kimberly's voice echoing in my ears. So, do you want it? I could still see Kimberly's face in my mind's eye, looking at me like I was really, really poor. I felt like Saturday would never come. I really like that expression, my mind's eye. My mind's eye. Chapter 6. Saturday did come after all. I woke up early and lay in bed imagining all the beautiful clothes Mama and I would buy that day. By tonight, I'd have dozens of outfits, just as pretty and rich looking and matched as Kimberly's. I'd have a warm coat that a princess, no, a queen would be proud to call her own. I'd have shoes that hadn't come from Payless, with a label on the side that everybody knew. By the end of the day, I'd look like I belonged at Satterwaith. I smelled the coffee that meant Mama and Daddy were up in the kitchen reading the newspaper. I slipped out of bed, pulled on my clothes, and sprinted to the door. Ready to go, Mama? I asked. Mama was still wearing her robe. Her hair stuck out all over her head. She laughed. And good morning to you, too, Eager Beaver, she said. Don't you know the specialty shop doesn't open until 10? 3 long hours later, Mama and I were sitting in our truck heading to the specialty shop. Mama was humming along with the radio. This is going to be fun, isn't it? She asked just as she pulled out of the parking lot. Just us girls shopping. That made me feel older somehow, like Mama and I were the same age, 2 friends going shopping together. I sat straighter. The specialty shop was even farther out of the city than Satterwaith School. Satterwaith. I don't know how to pronounce that just exactly right. It was on a quiet street with lots of trees and lots of other ritzy-looking shops. A jeweler's, a bakery called Creme de la Creme, something called the Sandhop House. They say that this is what shops in Europe look like, Mama said. Maybe you'll get to go there someday. She parked the truck and we got out. Leaves crunched under our feet. Mama held the specialty shop's heavy wooden door for me. If you want, you can look around while I talk to the manager, Mama said. I shouldn't be long, but something about the specialty shop made me want to stick close to Mama. It was the kind of place that made you feel like it might cost money to breathe in there. We walked up to the fancy, old-fashioned cash register. Then I saw a skinny computer next to it. That was probably what they really used. Is Mr. Creston in? Mama asked the woman behind the counter. She was tall and thin and wore her hair pulled back like a ballerina's. Whom shall I say is calling? The woman asked haughtily. Brenda Sams, Mama said. She had her jaw set just like she did when she and Daddy were having a fight. As soon as the woman walked away from the cash register, Mama bent down and whispered to me, She knows who I am, and that's not even talking right. What do you bet? She just likes to say whom. The woman came back and said, He can see you now. Mama turned around and rolled her eyes at me. It was hard not to giggle. I'm probably not doing that accent right. He can see you now. I followed Mama past the racks of clothes like Kimberly wore. I saw a price tag, $100 for a skirt, a plain black skirt. Okay, so maybe Mama and I wouldn't be buying clothes like Kimberly's, but they'd still be nice. It'd still make me fit in. Mama led me to a fancy carved door at the back of the store. She knocked lightly. Mr. Creston, she called as she turned the knob. He was on the phone. He held up his hand, just like it was sign language for, just a minute, I'll be right with you. Mr. Creston was wearing a suit, which I thought was pretty funny for a Saturday, but he was the kind of person you couldn't have pictured without a suit and tie. Even his hair looked rich. It was dark brown and glossy, like he polished it. Great, I'll buy those shares, he was saying into the phone. Thanks for the tip. He hung up. As soon as he turned to Mama, he put on a different expression, like a mask. It made me think of the doctors coming into Daddy's hospital room when he was hurt. Mr. Creston looked like those doctors did right before they said, I'm so sorry, the x-rays don't look good. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Sams, Mr. Creston was saying. How had I known? I had been meaning to call you up to come pick up your merchandise. What? Mama said. I came for my check. Well, Mr. Creston looked at Mama and then at me. He looked back at Mama. That's what I need to talk to you about. It appears that name sweaters are a bit passé now. Passé means like in the past. Nobody wants them now. We're just not getting enough orders. I'm sorry. That's why I'm returning all your samples. He pointed to 2 bags leaning against the wall behind us. Garbage bags. I didn't know what passé meant, but I could tell it wasn't good. Mama whirled around and grabbed the nearest bag. She ripped it open. I could see sweater after sweater after sweater. Sweaters I had been watching Mama knit for months. But these aren't just my samples. Some of these were special orders, Mama protested. Yes, but, Mr. Creston shrugged. People change their minds. And you know, Mrs. Sams, the customer is always right. Mama looked at me. I thought about the beautiful new coat we were going to buy. I thought about the new matching outfits I wanted to wear on school on Monday morning. Mama must have been thinking about those things too. Don't I have any money coming? She asked. Haven't you sold any of my sweaters since the last time? Mr. Creston shook his head. Mama turned as if she was going to pick up the bags and walk out. They'd be heavy. There were lots of sweaters in those bags. Then Mama saw me watching her. She turned back around. Her face was pale, but she had 2 angry red spots high on her cheekbones. Janie, would you please go wait for me in the truck? She said quietly. I nodded. I knew better than to mess with Mama when she had that look on her face. Mama handed me the keys to the truck, but I all but tiptoed out. Without Mama, I wasn't sure I'd even be able to open the specialty shop door. I had to push really hard. Here she is, sitting in the truck. And then I sat for what felt like hours waiting for Mama to come out. I stared at the specialty shop's front windows, which showed all sorts of sweaters with all sorts of designs. One sweater had sheep jumping over a fence. Another sweater had berries and apples. Another sweater showed flowers growing on a picket fence. I thought probably Mama was telling Mr. Creston that name sweaters weren't the only thing that she could knit. If name sweaters were passé, whatever that meant, it looked like sheep sweaters and apple sweaters and flower sweaters weren't. Probably Mama had convinced Mr. Creston to give her a check ahead of time because the new kind of sweater she was going to knit for them would be so great. But when Mama finally came out, I knew that that wasn't true. She was doing her angry walk. Her face was paler than ever. She heaved the bags of sweaters into the back of the truck. When she slid onto the seat beside me and silently took the keys I held out to her. She started the truck and backed out. Well, let's go shopping, she said. We won't let that ruin our day. But her voice shook. Her eyes glittered like they were wetter than they were supposed to be. Mr. Creston didn't give you a check, did he? I asked in a small voice. Let me pause this while I blow my nose. I think I'm back on. I hope so. Okay. Mr. Creston didn't give you a check, did he? I asked in a small voice. He's not going to buy any more of your sweaters, is he? No, Mama said. Her voice was steadier now, but I got him to tell me the truth. He found someone who can get women in Mexico to knit sweaters really cheap. So he makes more money if he sells those sweaters instead of mine, even for some of the special orders I already made. And I was too stupid to get him to sign a contract. So he can do that, hand back months of my hard work, just like that. Her voice was rising. She broke off. Why don't you just let him pay you what he's going to pay the Mexican women? I asked. Those starvation wages? My time's worth more than that, he snapped. So is theirs, I think. But she glanced over at me. Oh, Janie, this is all grown up stuff. Don't worry about it. We can still get your clothes today. We'll be fine. She didn't sound fine, and I didn't feel fine. I tell you one thing I love about Margaret Peterson Haddix is writing, and she does a really good job of showing instead of just telling. Like when her mom comes out, she's saying her voice shook, her eyes glitter. She didn't come out and say she's crying and all upset. She showed, not just told, what was going on there. All right, I'm enjoying it.